Hi everyone. Sorry for my grainy videos sometimes. I think I just figured out the trick to not having a grainy video, and that's to stop. I don't record for a few minutes. I just turn my camera on and it'll just adjust, and then I hit record. I guess, I don't know. So anyways, I just watched the Foot Fist Way for the second time a few months ago. Do y'all like my suntan? Check it out. This is proof that I'm not some bourgeoisie, fat cat capitalist guy making videos to try to convince people to give him more money. You know, when I criticize communism, I actually am a worker who knows what my options would be if I had less intervention from the state telling me what I have to do and what I'm not allowed to do. So, enough about that. This video is about the Foot Fist Way. This is a movie with Danny McBride and some other people, and it's fucking hilarious. I don't know if it was ever in theaters. I think it was just straight to DVD because I never heard of it until one of my martial arts friends showed me a clip, and I had to see the movie. I saw it twice. I saw it a year or two ago, and then they took it down offline, and I found it on YouTube again about a month or two ago, and I watched it again, and I mean, I'll tell you this much. I am a TaeKwonDo instructor through the WTF. I teach, I've been teaching for about a year or two. I'm a secondary black belt in the WTF and in the ITF. So TaeKwonDo is it's a Korean martial art style that has roots back in ancient Korea, like thousands of years ago. They're hieroglyphs of people practicing Taekyon, which is the predecessor of Taekwondo. Is the ancient martial art that Taekwondo evolved from, as well as karate, which is where Taekwondo got the belt system from. And anyway, so I know what I'm talking about when I talk about Taekwondo. I know two different perspectives, the ITF and the WTF, which are the two main ones, the main schools of thought in Taekwondo. And I can tell you this: that movie is hilariously accurate. You think it's just picking at Taekwondo, but it really, I think, points out all the flaws in mainstream martial arts and these what's it called, a strip mall dojang. They call it, in the martial arts world, we call it McDojoisms. So I'm not going to review too many details of the movie. I will, but first I want to talk about why martial arts schools are like this. Okay, so martial arts in general is very unregulated. There's no there's no extra tax on it. I mean, most of the martial arts classes that I've ever taken, and all of them that I've given, at least that I know of, are not taxed. You know, anytime I've given people private lessons, I've never taxed them. I've always asked for Bitcoin. But martial arts is very unregulated. And so, if something's unregulated, the main debate between unregulated things is that one group says that if something's unregulated, the product's going to be better. One group says if something's unregulated, the product is going to be worse. So, when it comes to martial arts schools, you get both, and I'm going to explain why. So, the reason why you have bad martial arts schools. So, for example, if you do Taekwondo properly, I'd say the way the WTF does it, not as much as ITF, although there are some good ITF schools out there. Just a little bit of insight on that. ITF, International Taekwondo Federation, they don't wear hogus, the chest guards, when they spar. They don't focus as much on sparring as self-defense type stuff, a couple drills, and I would say they're not as hardcore as WTF. You see a lot more fat instructors in the ITF than you would in the WTF. And the WTF is the Olympic sparring. If you watch Taekwondo in the Olympics, where they wear the chest guards, and it's usually red or blue, and they have all these crazy lightning fast knockouts where they spin kick you in the jaw and then the guy just falls over. That's World Taekwondo Federation. So when I was growing up in Taekwondo, I took the International Taekwondo Federation, and then I went to the WTF. Once I got my secondary black belt in the ITF, I went to the WTF and retested for my black belt relearned all their techniques and went to their school for a few years. So, anyways, the reason why there are shitty martial arts schools is because economic reasons. Let's say that I go to Korea and I train at the Kukkiwon and learn the most intense version of Taekwondo. Well, in Asia, if you train a martial arts system, you don't go there just twice a week as a hobby. You tend to live at the school, or at least spend most of your time there. So like, people don't know this, but there are Taekwondo monasteries. My Taekwondo instructor through the WTF when I was a teenager, he lived in a Taekwondo monastery, and his technique was flawless. Now, if Taekwondo is done properly, it's the greatest ab exercise and cardio exercise and leg exercise that I can think of. I mean, you have to be able to control your legs completely. You have to be able to have perfect balance. That requires an amazing core strength, all these little tiny muscles in your feet, super fast reflexes, strong muscles, all sorts of stuff. And especially cardio. I mean, if you get on a bag and you start kicking it, within 30 seconds to a minute, most normal people get winded. I mean, myself, I get winded. But then, of course, I'm not in the best shape, and I'll make other videos about that. But anyways, in the movie, Danny McBride teaches an ITF school. And I can tell by the patterns that they practice, the way that they dress when they spar. None of them wear the official WTF chest guards. And the reason why that school is so laughable is, for one, it's something that they only do twice a week. Or once a week. I mean, I'm not sure their schedule, but it's a hobby for a lot of them. You see the ones that do it, that are really intense into the program. Like, there was this one kid who, like, he worships the instructor, you know, like, he's his idol, you know. And that kid is pretty good. But the problem with, like, the reason why these schools are really watered down is, if you go to Korea or Japan, and with any martial art, and you train at the source, you learn the most intense version of the training. Those guys are in incredible shape. I mean, look at karate guys. You see people in the UFC who've trained karate, but they didn't do some, twice a week bullshit karate where it's just a fun class for kids. They do hardcore, full contact, no gear sparring, which is what traditional karate does. And I mean, some karate guys, talk about the technique. I'll criticize the karate's technique all day, because I think that their hand movements are lacking, and I think their leg movements are kind of lacking too. I think Taekwondo kicks are much better than karate kicks. But the way they train in Japan and in a lot of like good karate schools, those dudes they're fucking tough. Like, they can take a hit like no other. There's a video of some karate guy getting kicked in the nuts by an NFL pro kicker. Like, all this guy does is kick balls, literally, for his job. And they had this guy kick the karate guy, and the guy just took it. And that's not something you're going to find at all these karate schools. So to get to why these are so common is because most people who want to learn karate, they don't want to learn the hard shit. They don't want to learn how to get kicked in the nuts and just take it. They want to learn some of the techniques so they can look cool and practice it in front of their friends, or show off, when they go to a gym or get a heavy bag. They're not looking to beat up 20 people and be able to break, a huge chunk of ice, or lay down on a bed of spikes and have boards broken on them, or whatever weird crazy shit they do. Same with Taekwondo. Most people that take Taekwondo are kids, and they're not looking to become black belts. Most parents put their kids in a Taekwondo class or a karate class so the kid will learn how to follow instructions. They'll get a lot of energy released. This is something that they tell me all the time. The parents, one of the main things they want me to do when I teach the kids is just make sure that they leave the school tired and ready to take a nap. Okay, especially my younger kids, if they're running around not really paying attention, I don't care. they're running. Good for them. That's what kids should be doing. They should be running around playing. If they're running, they're burning calories. They're getting tired, and that's what the parent wants. That's what I get paid to do. I don't get paid to make sure that 3-year-old becomes a fucking black belt, perfect Taekwondo guy in as short of amount of time as possible. And so, if you have two schools where one teaches, okay, look, you come into my karate class for your first 10 lessons, you're going to have to sit in a sitting stance for the entire hour and a half that you're here. I'm going to put a bucket of water on each shoulder, and if it falls, then you have to do 100 push-ups. Like crazy shit like that. If they had classes like that, people would not go to them. You would take one class, and halfway through you say, you know what, fuck this shit. No way. But if you go to a karate class and he's like, okay, look, we got this big fun rubber mat that you can roll around on and jump and do flips on without getting hurt. We have these pads you can kick and practice some of these techniques. You're going to think, okay, cool. I mean, it has to be taught. You have to really test your students. And so, like my beginner's class is a lot bigger than my advanced class for a reason. Because most people, when they try Taekwondo at first, they don't want to stick to it. Because it gets hard, right? It requires a lot of coordination. And some of it is kind of silly, like all the forms and patterns and stuff. It's more for little kids to develop coordination and self-discipline over their body and like motor functions and stuff. Learning how to throw their hand and stop it at a certain point. Learning how to do the same movement over and over really helps teach them how to control their body. And it helps their memory. So anyways, in the movie you see that. When his Danny McBride's friend comes in, who's a 5th degree black belt, Danny McBride plays a 4th degree black belt. He comes up all intense and stands up in front of the class and he's like, 5%. Oh, it's my notes from my other job, my non-Taekwondo job. 5% of people who join Taekwondo actually get a black belt. And the joke that I heard with that was like, that's not because they all tried and couldn't do it. It's because they quit. Okay, like they didn't like it. They found something else. They weren't trying to be a black belt. Like when I started Taekwondo when I was 4, I wanted to be a fucking black belt. That's all I cared about. I mean, I trained every day, and like in my free time before school, I would do some kicks and then stretch. I would when I got home from school, I would do kicks and stretch. When I was at school, I would sneak off during gym class and do kicks and stretch, and I would get in trouble or I would get made fun of. But I still did it because it's what I loved. Even in high school, I would skip lunch and I would go to the gym. And we had this like a lot of gyms have these like you have the floor and then you have these other floors up here. I would sneak off to the higher floors and I would practice different kicks. And people down below, they could see me and they laugh or whatever. But I mean, it's what I like to do. So fuck them. And that's the thing in life. You gotta just do what you like to do and don't give a shit what other people think. But in the movie. So right after that, he says, 5%, stick to it. 1%, go and become 5th degree black belts. And so, it's like, that takes a lot of dedication to become a 5th degree black belt. But so, McDojoism is a phrase that a lot of people talk about martial arts because, for example, when ninjutsu came out and it was really popular, everybody was opening up a ninjutsu school, and you could say, hey, this is my school that I teach ninjutsu at. It's super badass. And you don't need to have any certification that proves that you studied ninjutsu. You can not know what the Bujinkan is. You have no idea who Masaki Hatsumi is. You don't even know like Koga or Iga or anything like that. You just say, you know what? I ordered all these black jumpsuits and I came up with some cool shit for us to do, and we can throw stars at targets and shit, and ninjutsu, whatevs. And charge $30 a month. A lot of people would sign up for that shit. And no one's stopping you. There's no law against it. It's not like there's some federation of ninjas that are going to come out and say, okay, look, you can't do that. I mean, there probably is. I mean, fuck it. If they're ninjas, it's not like I would know, right? So yeah, the unregulatedness of the martial arts industry allows for a lot of these shitty, watered-down schools to pop up. everywhere, and they get really popular. And I say there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with it. Now people would say, oh, but that waters down the style, that destroys the style. Well, no, I wouldn't say that. It gives a lot more people a taste of what the style really could be. If you go to a Taekwondo school and the instructor's fat, and you learn just the basics, and you spar, and no one there is really that good at sparring, and the exercises are kind of weak, you're still getting a taste of Taekwondo. You can still push yourself in that class, and they tell you 10 kicks, you go home and you do 50. You know, they're still going to tell you more or less how to do the kick properly. So it's good for kids, especially because it gives them a sense of accomplishment in gaining their belts. Now, this is another thing about the movie that I thought was really funny and oddly accurate, is how he acted like being a black belt makes you a fucking god. And the thing about it, though, is that that's a common misconception that a lot of people in martial arts have. They say that, oh, if you're a black belt, you can take on 100 guys at once. Like, no, that's not what it really means. When I first got my black belt, I realized how much I didn't know. Because I found out, okay, I'm pretty good at Taekwondo, but there's still some guys in Taekwondo who train a fuck ton harder than me, who could kick my ass in 5 seconds. You know, if I get in a sparring match with some of these guys, I would be hospitalized, even with all the protective gear. I mean, when I started this new school where I teach at, there was this other instructor there, and this guy, I mean, fuck, I would hold the pad for him to kick, and it hurt bad. Like, he could knock me back and knock the wind out of me, and I'm holding this big shield pad between me and him. And so a lot of people, they'll say these McDojo schools, they'll see them as the example of that martial art, and they'll say, oh, well, Taekwondo's ineffective because look at that bullshit on that movie. And this is why I always say, like my theory about boxing, for example, is that I don't think boxing is as effective of a fighting system as it is a training system and a mentality. Now, I never really liked too many boxers because boxers tend to seem really arrogant and quick to fight. And myself, I don't like fighting. I think that people who seek out fights are missing the point of martial arts, which is to protect yourself and to avoid fighting. But the way they train, though, I mean, fuck, they go hard. They go hard as shit. Like, they train several hours every day. They wake up at 5. They run miles up hills. They get in the ring for like 15 rounds. They push themselves to the brink, and then their mentality on fighting is you tear out their throat. You're a predator, you know. And that's not something that you get in other martial arts schools. In other martial arts schools, it's like, okay, for one, most people who go to martial arts schools, they only train while they're there, which is a couple nights a week. They don't train outside. They don't wake up extra. They don't do cardio. They don't do strength training. And they don't train like the boxers do. And that's one huge reason why boxers, like in the UFC, and wrestlers who are the same as boxers in the way that they train. They train really hard. They exercise a lot. Plus, wrestling is really physically demanding because you use all of your muscles against someone else. So it's like maximum, like your max pull or push on each muscle group. So like if someone is pulling your arm into an arm bar and you're resisting, you're curling your max while you're trying to prevent them from pulling your arm. And if you fail, you're still curling your max, trying to stop it all the way down until you tap out. So you work out all your muscles. If you grapple for like 5 minutes, even less, against someone who's about your own skill, maybe a little better than you, you're going to be sore and covered in sweat. You're going to ache in parts of your body you didn't know could ache, that you didn't know you were using. And, I mean, sorry, I ramble a lot. But different martial arts, when you go to different classes, will, based on the demand of the school, will have different training regimens. You know, boxing schools, they compete all the time. And so they train you as hard as they can. Now, Taekwondo schools, ITF, they don't really have serious competitions. They have tournaments like once every other month. Usually they have a testing like every other month. They usually switch it off. Like when I was going, we had a tournament one month, testing the next month. The next month, testing the next month. And so Um, like of course the boxers are going to train harder. In Muay Thai, they train to compete all the time. So it's the same. I mean, that's one reason why people think that Muay Thai is really effective. Now, Muay Thai has some really badass technique. Like, their technique is really good. I think so. Their mentality of the fight, the things that they look for in a fight. I mean, I would not want to get into a street fight with a Muay Thai master. I would probably get my ass kicked. I mean, the same with a boxer. I mean, of course, if you're really good at Taekwondo, you have an advantage over boxers simply because your legs are longer than their arms. And so if you can keep them at bay with your legs and kick them in the stomach and the ribs and stuff, then it's going to really affect their ability to box because you're keeping them at a distance and you're wearing them down, but separate concept. So, the other side of this, how I started earlier saying that you have certain schools that are really shitty and certain schools that are really badass. And this is what people say, oh, if you have a free market on martial arts, everything's going to be shitty. That's what a lot of people would say if communists ever talked about martial arts schools. And the same thing on the other side. If ANCAPs talked about martial arts schools, they would say, well, because there's a free market in martial arts, it's just going to keep getting better and better. So what you actually see is that the market provides everything that people need. If you have a full-time job and kids, and you're just looking to learn a little bit of a discipline, memorize some patterns, learn some kicks, learn some punches, get a little bit of exercise, meet some people, make some friends, get a black belt in something, there are plenty of schools out there where you can do that. If you want to, now because of competition in martial arts, and especially the invention of the UFC, which was just the ultimate free market competition of every different style competing, that gave birth within 1 decade or less to the UFC. And not just the UFC, but MMA in general, which is a whole new concept on fighting and on martial arts training, where you don't just stick to one technique. Now, this is another major flaw in McDojoism that is related to how people like worship black belts. Okay, so people put a lot of faith in a certain martial art style. Like in a Taekwondo school, they'll say, oh, Taekwondo is the best style that there is. So if that guy's a black belt in Taekwondo, you can't fuck with him. He's a fucking badass. This happened. I was actually a victim of this in my Taekwondo school. I was the best at one of my Taekwondo schools besides the instructor. I was the highest rank there. I was young. I was like 14. I was in pretty good shape, and I could spar circles around most people. I could break like 4 boards with a kick. I think one time I did 5. I was a beast at that school, in that little tiny pond. Okay, now all the people there, they weren't training as hard as I was. They didn't really want to be as badass as I was. A lot of them were older women or like 30-year-old men just trying to meet chicks. A couple younger women who were like just trying to stay in shape. Maybe lose some pounds. A bunch of kids who their parents wanted them to get into some discipline. And this one time I was goofing around with some people there, and it ended up falling down a hill, breaking my collarbone. You actually can't really see it in this. That's weird. The lighting's weird. I'm not a camera guy. I don't know how to do lighting. But I fell, I broke my collarbone, and I was walking around the Taekwondo campus. It was actually this old like church campgrounds that the school was on. It was a pretty cool place. But I was walking around to all these people who I went to Taekwondo with, and I was like, yo, I need you to, can you please call like an ambulance or something? I broke my collarbone. And they were looking at me like, no, you didn't. You're done. You can't. Psh, yeah, right. You're okay. Just walk it off. Because a lot of them thought I was invincible. And I'm not trying to brag. Like, I think this is a cultish mentality to have. It's not healthy. I mean, I kind of believed it too, and I ended up getting, I wouldn't say I got my ass beat, but I got attacked in a fight by some people who were a lot bigger than me. It can give you a false sense of arrogance and confidence when everyone is telling you, oh, you're a black belt, you're super badass, and they're constantly complimenting you. You need some form of competition to keep you in check. And so that was something when I found MMA. I saw that there are other styles of martial arts out there. Some people, I might be able to kick them, sure, but if they get close enough to me, they can do something to me that I have no idea how to fight against. And that was when I found out Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, is that my mom's stepdad was really good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and me and him would grapple, and I found that on the ground my Taekwondo was not worthless, not useless, because I was still a lot more flexible than most people, but it didn't help me with techniques. Like, it didn't really help me to avoid stuff, because Taekwondo is not designed for close combat as much as it is like legs distance, arms distance, keeping people outside of your personal bubble. So I would say, if you want to understand a martial arts style, go to the source, look up books on it, watch different videos, go to different schools, figure out what your goal is. If you want to see how good Taekwondo is in the ring or as an effective martial art, don't compare some guy who trains twice a week just to keep in shape with someone in a different martial art style like boxing or Muay Thai who is training specifically to be able to beat other martial artists in a fight. Because that's apples and oranges, okay? Now, if you want to see how good Taekwondo is, I would say compare the WTF, the Olympic sparring matches with other martial art styles. See, well, how fast do they kick? How hard do they kick? That's a one kick knockout to the face in 1/10 of a second. Fuck, that's pretty good. That's got to have some, usefulness to it. So, in the movie, I don't really want to spoil too much, but you do see how they really worship some people in the class kind of worship the instructor, and he has a really big head. That's a common thing in a lot of martial arts schools too, which I think I like to see more decentralized sort of martial arts training programs. I actually will make a video on that eventually because I plan on designing something like that. But when you have any form of hierarchy, not to sound like some ANCOM, because I'm not an ANCOM, voluntary hierarchies are perfectly morally legit, and they can have a lot of utility to them. I mean, I have to be at the top of the hierarchy in my Taekwondo class because I'm the best in my Taekwondo class that I teach. I mean, I'm the instructor. I know more than any of them do. But I'll tell them, if my students start getting better, I always keep in mind to let them know, look, my goal as an instructor is to make sure you're better at Taekwondo than I am. I want to get you better than me. That's my goal. I want you to be able to beat me by the time you're my rank or before. If you can beat me, that means that I succeeded as a teacher. Okay. Get here. So, in the movie, he kind of puts his martial arts above. Okay, I'm rambling and I don't want this video to be too crazy long. I don't want it to pass 30 minutes. So, just as an ending, I love the movie. I thought it was hilarious as fuck. I would totally watch it again. I recommend anybody to watch the movie, especially if you've been in any ITF Taekwondo class, because it's accurate as fuck. I mean, it's super accurate. It makes fun of everything wrong with mainstream Taekwondo schools. Really, any martial arts school that doesn't compete and that doesn't that focuses too much on tradition and on the guy in charge instead of the art itself, which is what I always try to emphasize. Yeah, I'm teaching, but I'm not the one in charge. The martial art is the thing that's in charge. So if I tell you to do something that's not Taekwondo, and you know that it's not Taekwondo, then correct me. But then again, I'm a different type of instructor than all the others out there. So, anyways, that's my 2 cents. Go watch the movie if you haven't seen it. I think you can find it on YouTube, or go, I don't know, order the DVD, Blu-ray, green disc, whatever the shit. All right, y'all, bye.